Hey, so after playing Alhaitham for about a few days now, I'd like to share my thoughts on how I feel about him and whether or not anything that I've said in the pre-release video has changed at all. So I think overall I got most of his energy needs correct, especially for double dendro. Around 120 to 140% definitely works fine for him. I mainly tested with about 130% ER for most of the teams I tested him on, and I was able to get my burst back pretty reliably, so it's safe to say that these ranges are pretty good. Now, for teams where he is solo dendro, such as say Burgeon, I kind of underestimated because originally I said that around 140 to 150% would be solid. In fact, I think I even unironically said that 120 to 130 was good in Burgeon, which was a grave miscalculation on my end, so yeah, that happened. In practice, I found myself needing closer to like 160 or even up to like 180 ER just to get it back all the time consistently. This was the case across most of the rotations I've tried in solo dendro teams, so I'm fairly confident in this range more than the range that I said before. Now, obviously with 140 or 150, you can get away with that, but you pretty much would have to get your particle generation near perfect, or you're just on field with him so long that like it doesn't matter that much anyways. So because of this, you've seen something like say Favonius or even running an ER Sands help with alleviating these needs. So if you are really struggling with energy, then of course these are viable to use, and these are some things that I use that really did help alleviate that need. So now let's move on to his need for Nahida, or rather a second dendro in general for his teams. Now I'm unsure if I really touched on this before, aside from his C2 at max stacks effectively replacing her Essential 1 passive effect. Regardless, it's still an important point to make. Now he doesn't need to have her, but so far in my experience, she definitely helps him out. This is especially the case in teams like Spread, for example, where his focus is more on doing damage rather than being solely like an applicator for teams like say Hyperbloom. We're going solo dendro is less taxing in those teams. In bloom based teams in general, however, she is not as needed compared to Spread. Still, it's good to use her regardless, and in general, having a second dendro alleviates a lot of his stuff for him, such as ER needs, and just having someone else to hold a set like Deep with Memories so he can use a more offensive set like say Gilded Dreams, which is his best in slot of course. Now for weapons, I've tested a variety of weapons, and I think for the most part my initial analysis was overall pretty fine. Haran and Mistblitter worked perfectly fine in my testing in terms of actually playing him. His 4-star replacements like Iron Sting and the Black Sword were able to get the job done, though were notably weaker than I had originally thought. This may just be the case because I don't personally have them at high refinements. I was using R1 Black Sword and R1 Iron Sting, so I would assume if you have high refinements, they would be slightly better or a bit more on par. But regardless, they did just fine, weren't horrible to use, but notably weaker because, I mean, they're 4-star options. Favonius was oddly a really nice choice to use, especially because it allowed me to use my burst more comfortably every rotation. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that weapon to the list of pretty decent options, especially if you find yourself struggling to get his burst up all the time and you want to use it. I'll mess around with more weapons in the future once I have time and the materials to level them up, but for now, this is what we are going to just rock with. All right, artifacts. It was no one's surprise. Gilded Dreams and Deep with Memories are definitely his go-to sets. Gilded Dreams is more offensive and especially very nice in teams like double dendro, while Deep with Memories 2Ps and 4Ps benefit him still. Now, I don't have him on my like Nilou alt account, and I don't really have people who are really pulling for Alhaitham who have Nilou as well. So I unfortunately couldn't really test Bloom with Flower Lost Paradise Full EM, and this is also coincidentally because I don't really have a Flower Lost Paradise Full EM set for him, so there's that. But I did try messing around with Full EM in general with like other sets, and I did kind of try a Bloom team with like double dendro, double hydro, and just like mess around with it. Even though I don't really have Nilou and it's not as effective, it actually did pretty okay. So it is definitely an okay set to go, and going Full EM with Bloom is actually pretty decent. Not the best option, but again, still decent. And I would assume if you had Nilou, then it would actually be really effective, pretty strong overall. Now for teams, I personally liked Hyperbloom the best, mainly because going solo dendro felt the least taxing in this team, though I still ran double dendro in most playthroughs I did just because of comfortability and also just because, well, Nahida. Now his focus on application rather than damage gives him a bit more of leeway in how you build him, especially if you decide to use something like say an ER Sands or Favonius for more consistent burst uptime. Burgeon was okay, but I personally prefer Hyperbloom over it, at least in this Abyss cycle, since there's not that much large AoE content aside from Chamber 3 second half, and I don't want to deal with that Geowolf, so we'll move it aside. Spread was overall really good, and I really liked it a lot. Similar to what I said in my pre-release, it is definitely in the top 2 for his overall best teams. Now, I mentioned I would do some burning testing when it comes out. Now, with the minimal amount of AoE content that I could test this on in the Abyss and just in general, burning actually wasn't horrible to use. I tried different variations like double dendro, double pyro, double animo even, although I don't really have venti, so I had to use Kazuha and sucrose, but like even then, overall double pyro and double dendro were slightly better. But again, this may just be the case because I don't have venti, so I think maybe if you had venti in Kazuha or something like that, it would be a bit more effective. But I personally, especially if I had to choose one, I would personally do double pyro. It's nothing super impressive because of course it's burning, and burning's kind of just whatever, but it's not as horrible as I thought it would be. Constellations, I'll just get this out the way, they're still dog shit. Don't get them. Yeah, that's it. Alright, that's all I really got to say. I don't really think I need to add or say anything else. He's overall a pretty solid unit like I said he was going to be, and I think I did a pretty okay job with my first analysis about him, although there were some gaps such as his energy and some things I said about his artifact choices that I think were definitely off the rail. Nonetheless, he may not be a must pull, but I definitely enjoy playing him a lot, and I think regardless, he'll bring some value to your account in some way, even if you don't really need him. I also like how comfortable he is to play, and that despite having optimized combos and things like that are notably good, especially for things like spread, going Unga Bunga at enemies, just normal attacking, just spamming your abilities, is both fun and also still relatively effective. Now, my next series of videos will be related to Nahida, since her early numbers actually recently came out, so stay tuned for lots of analysis videos about her. I'm also interested in seeing what she has to offer, which, spoiler, for now, so far, it sadly may not be a lot. So anyways, thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye bye.